Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Artist First World Radio Network, home of the best new music you've never heard and home of the best new talk shows you need to hear. Please don't forget to visit our archive page at www.artistfirst.com, where you can hear all our past shows for free and on demand. You are tuning into High School Football America. This show airs every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For more information about High School Football America, please visit artistfirst.com/jefffisher.htm. And now here's your host of High School Football America, Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Corey, and good evening, high school football fans, and welcome to High School Football America for August the 4th. And excited to have show number 3 coming up here. I'd like to thank all of you who've listened to the first 2 shows, and want to welcome our new listeners as we grow High School Football America into the country's premier high school football interview show. Last week, 4 states began fall practice with the 2011 season. This week, another 13 states joining in. Those states that got things underway this week: Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Mississippi, New Mexico, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and Wisconsin. The season's first official games take place next weekend in Alaska and Hawaii, so off the lower 48. And then also next week, 10 more states get things off and rolling with their fall football practices. And to keep things up to date as far as state news throughout the season, you can follow High School Football America on Facebook and Twitter. Just go to our website, www.highschoolfootballamerica.com. Click on the icon so you don't miss out on one bit of high school football news throughout the season. Our Twitter handle is HSFBA America. If you have any comments during the show, please feel free to contact us on the High School Football America Facebook page. Just go to Facebook and search High School Football America. Now, in addition to all of this week's news from around the nation, we've got 3 great guests on our show tonight. Going to tell you about them right now. We'll start things off in Joplin, Missouri, with head coach Chris Shields. In addition to getting the job as the first-year head coach at Joplin High, Shields has had to deal with an incredible destruction that was caused by tornadoes 2 months ago, destroying some 7,000 homes, left 160 people dead. So Chris Shields has a lot on his hands here, getting his team ready for 2011 and also getting the community back on its feet. We'll then head down south to Georgia, talk with Jess Simpson. He's the head coach at Buford High School outside of Atlanta. I'm very familiar with this program. I lived in Atlanta for a couple of years and saw them play a little bit of football. Also saw them at, I think they were at the Kirk Herbstreit Classic. I think it was back in 2007 in Ohio, and they played a team from Ohio there. Buford has won 4 straight Class 2A titles in Georgia. They're poised for a 5th one. Simpson will talk about the expectations on his program. Those expectations landed square on their chest by Max Preps, who named them number 1 in their Preseason Small Schools Top 25 poll. And finally, we'll wrap up with Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck, talking a little bit about all the safety measures that need to be taken during the heat of summer. During 2-a-days, of course, we've had the tragic loss of 3 football players early on, plus an assistant coach in Texas in the first 10 days of practice. So Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck is going to join me to talk about what can be done when it comes to heat-related injuries, how to prevent and make sure that none of this happens the rest of the way. Some of the other topics we'll cover on tonight's show: 15 states now under heat advisories, and we're going to talk about what some of the states are doing to protect the players and coaches. For example, in Atlanta, they moved all of their practices past 6 p.m. Also on the safety front, we'll talk about some sobering numbers on concussions, and then we'll go down to Texas, look at the Longhorn Television Network that will not be broadcasting high school football games this season. They had wanted to, but the Big 12 stepped in and said that wasn't going to happen. I want to thank our partners for tonight's show. Blitz Group is a proud sponsor of High School Football America. Blitz Group is HSFA's media strategist. For more information, please go to their website, www.blitzgroup.com. Also want to thank the High School Rudy Awards, honoring inspirational high school football players who best defined the 4 C's. And their 4 C's: character, courage, contribution, and commitment. Go to highschoolrudyawards.com to nominate a player. And we're also sponsored tonight by the National High School Coaches Association. The mission of the NHSCA: provide leadership and support to coaches and administrators and their programs. For more information, please go to the website. Also for membership, you can go to the website at nhsca.com. Now, if you'd like to learn more about sponsorship opportunities here on High School Football America, you can email me at jeff@highschoolfootballamerica.com to find out how you can sponsor the best show in America when it comes to talking high school football and interviewing all the top players and coaches. All right, time to take a break. When we return, High School Football America takes you to Joplin, Missouri, to talk with Chris Shields, head coach of the Joplin Eagles. That's when we return on High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
The hottest technology in the world isn't being developed in Silicon Valley. In the United States Navy, more top-secret technologies are being created than ever before. Incredible machines made of stealth materials that fly by themselves. The only problem with these incredible technologies? It's a shame the enemy can't see them. To learn more, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life.
And now back to the show with your host, Jeff Fisher.
Thank you, Corey. Welcome back to High School Football America. Taking a trip across the country tonight. We're going to be in Missouri, Georgia, and then New York City. A little bit later in the show, Jess Simpson, the head football coach at Buford High School in Georgia, ranked number 1 in the preseason poll by Max Preps on the small school side. They've only lost 3 regular season games in the last 10 years. And then at the end of the show, we're going to talk to Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck, going to talk about some of the tragedy early on in the season as we've lost 3 players to heat-related deaths, and we also had an assistant coach in Texas. So Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck is going to come on and chat a little bit about what can be done to make sure those sort of things do not happen. But now we want to turn our attention to Joplin, Missouri, and there's been some tragedy there, but we're going to talk about all the good things that have happened since May the 22nd, when the town was ripped and changed forever by some tornadoes. It's a town of about 50,000. Several months prior to that fateful day, Chris Shields was named the new Joplin head football coach. So aside from getting his new program up and running, coach has had to deal with a situation that definitely goes beyond X's and O's. Practice starts in Missouri on Monday. So Coach Shields joins us right now on High School Football America to talk about things. And, Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time tonight.
Well, I just want to thanks, Jeff, for having us. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, myself and many Americans were unfortunately glued to the television back in May when the tornadoes came through the town. So I guess maybe before we get into football itself, let's kind of give the listeners a little bit of an update and talk about what's going on as the town tries to clean up and trying to get life back to normal in Joplin.
Well, I tell you what, one of the things that has impressed me most, being a new resident to Joplin and just really has just reinforced some of the reasons why I felt that this was a good job and a job I needed to take, is just the resiliency and the community spirit that this town has. It's been nothing short of amazing to see the town rally in the after effects of the storm and just kind of come together and make a commitment to rebuild itself.
Now, you got the job in February. The tornadoes happened in May. So tell me a little bit about it. I think I read a couple of things that for a while you couldn't even get into the town, couldn't talk to school officials, you couldn't get to some of your players. So tell us a little bit about what that was like. Again, you were the head coach last year at Holt, so this is your first year here.
Right. Well, I was just, I found out maybe the same way many of the other people, being a teacher in the public education, you have to finish out your current teaching contract. So I was in Wentzville, Missouri, over by St. Louis, when the storm hit, and actually just got a text from a friend there in town that had said that a tornado had hit Joplin. And I hate to say it, but, when you grow up in the Midwest, you get accustomed to those things, and your first reaction isn't that the whole town, half the town had been destroyed. So we were able to, but then you start to see it unfold on the Weather Channel just like everyone else. And your first instinct is to come down right away. I was able to, and to see if you can help and to reach out and make sure to contact your staff and your coaches and players and administration. And the ones I was able to get in touch with, they encouraged us to wait, that we wouldn't probably even be able to get into town right away. So me and a couple of assistants that I brought with me from Wentzville, we came down the very next day. We came down Monday and stayed for a few days through Wednesday and just tried to help out as best we could, whether it be debris removal or locating kids and things of that nature.
So tell us about then trying to flip the switch and install your program, again, your first year there. What are some of the things, the hurdles that you had to overcome beyond just football to get yourself kind of up and rolling for 2011?
Well, our first concern was just player, identifying players, finding players, making sure that they were okay, seeing what needs and that they had. And I'll be honest with you, our kids have been very resilient. They've bounced back great. We've got a number of kids who lost their homes and some loved ones, and many of them are there every day, and they're working hard, and you wouldn't even know it when you're on the field, whether it's lifting weights in the weight room or on the practice field. We had some coaches that lost some homes. We had lost a rental home, but we didn't have really anything in there other than some winter clothes and things. So we were very fortunate, and obviously weren't there at the time. So we consider ourselves very fortunate. So you're looking for a house, you're looking for a place to live, trying to relocate your family, and then little things you take for granted. Even when you're starting a new program or a new job, you have to learn where do you fill out a purchase order? How do you order equipment? Where do you make copies? Who do you go for? Things like that. And when you don't even have a school or an office or anything like that, you're kind of working out of the back of the car. So it makes things a little bit more difficult in that aspect. But overall, it's a lot like, a lot of other jobs. It's just getting to know the kids, getting back on the field and trying to get back to work and get some normalcy.
You have a very positive attitude about it, that's for sure. Any damage to any of the football facilities there as far as from the storms?
Well, we lost, the high school was completely destroyed. So we lost our practice field. We lost some of our cloth, all of our video editing computers, things like that, our footballs, some helmets, some shoulder pads. The majority of them, though, were located at the stadium. The stadium, fortunately, isn't on site of the high school campus, so many of the helmets and shoulder pads, things like that, were salvageable. And we were able to get through just generous donations and efforts from people all across the country. We were able to replenish, a lot of those needs, footballs and things like that, very quickly. And so right now, I'm happy to say, we're back running and have everything that we need.
All right, well, let's get to the present then and talk some football here as camp is getting ready to open. Tell us a little bit about what you're feeling now that you've gone through this. What should it be like when you walk out on the practice field?
Well, we were fortunate. We had to do, since we didn't have a weight room in high school, we did all of our off-season lifting at Webb City High School, and Coach Roderick and his guys were phenomenal in letting us use their facilities. But we were able to have all of our camps and things like that. We had 2 team camps this summer at our stadium, and so we've got to see the guys in action. They're off this week. We'll come back. We'll start back. We'll have a player-parent meeting on Sunday, just kind of get everybody back and familiar, and then we'll hit it first thing 6 a.m. on Monday. I've been very pleased with what I've seen so far. The kids are very dedicated. They're buying in. The coaching staff, the guys that we retained and held over, are doing a great job of buying in and believing in the things that we're wanting to do. And you get a real sense of commitment and dedication from the kids. They want to be great. They want to do great things. They want to be successful on the field, and they're willing to work to do the things that it takes necessary to have a successful program. So just learning the different terminology, the schemes, to me, that's kind of been the easy part, because the kids have really bought in wholehearted, and having those camps early in the summer has kind of given us a jump start, whereas in the past, we may be just introducing things for the first time come Monday, but, I'd say we've got 70% of our offense, defense already in, and so we'll just hit the ground running, so to speak, on Monday. But been very pleased with what I've seen so far.
So can you give us a couple of names of some kids, give them a little bit of props here? Who's some kids that you're going to be looking for some big things out of this year?
Well, I tell you what, we've already done our captain's vote. We've got 4 guys that I think really embody what we're looking for. Our offensive captains, we've got a returning All-State receiver in Dayton Whitehead, and you hear all the hype, and he was an All-State receiver and had over 80 catches last year, and you see him on film, but he's just been, he's legit. He's the real deal. He's been very amazing. The kid works hard. You never know. Very unassuming, very diligent worker. Does all the little things. Runs good routes, blocks in the run game, and it really does a great job of working with the younger kids and making sure that that they know what they're doing, because he catches on so quickly. But just does a great job. We've got our other offensive captain is our returning starter as well, tailback Chris Peyton Barba. Chris rushed for almost 1,000 yards last year. We're going to be try to be a little bit more balanced offense, so we certainly expect him to kind of carry the load for us. He's an exciting player, really quick feet, more of a scat back, but he can really do some good things. Defensively, I think the strength for us on the defense side of the ball is going to be our defensive line, and Jared Bader's a returning starter as well, going to be a senior for us, plays defensive end. Great kid, he's the first one to pick a kid up and help him out. But he knows how to work that switch, and man, when it's time to go, he can flip that switch, and just a tenacious player, and really does a great job of getting after the ball and very relentless. And then our other defensive captain is a safety, Evan Wilson. Evans, done a great job. He kind of plays in our defense, kind of a hybrid type. He'll be in the box. He'll play some half and some deep thirds and things like that. So we want to make sure that things are going on. Communication's good in the secondary, and everybody knows is on the same page as far as the coverage. And Evan and another junior, Isaiah King, who's our free safety, does a great job of that as well.
So tell us a little bit about the thumbprint. What kind of coach is Chris Shields? Are you an offensive guy, a defensive guy? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I made my bones, coaching on the defensive side of the ball. That's what I've come up. I've got experience on both sides, but I'll call the defense. I was fortunate enough to bring my offensive coordinator from Holt with me. So it's going to be it's familiar with me what we're doing on offense. It's the same kind of thing we've done, which is a spread system, but our version of the spread is we want to be power run game. We want to be physical at the point of attack on both sides of the ball. Defensively, like I said, I'll call the defense. We're an odd front, we're an odd stack. We run the 3-3-5, very aggressive. We like to attack and get after people. As far as me, I'm a guy. I'm an old school guy. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I'm very passionate about the game, and I try to let that feed off to our other coaches and players.
And we're talking with Chris Shields, the head football coach at Joplin High School, dealing with more than X's and O's after the town was devastated by tornadoes back on May the 22nd. Chris, as a coach, you're always looking for those little edges on the motivational side, and obviously you have that, with football, but you've got something a little different this year. How do you think what happened in the town will motivate your players this year, if at all?
Well, I think our kids understand because it's already been put out there. I think this is a testament, really, not just to the Joplin community or us or our program, but just to the sport of football in general. I love this game, and I have no doubt that it's the greatest sport that there is, and I think it's the number one sport in America, and I think it's never been more evident than to me personally since I've taken the job here. I think it serves as a rallying point for the whole community. I know it is because I hear it daily that it's, that first home game and that first game, but especially the first home one, is something the whole community is looking forward to. Even like I said, even with the kids, even if it's gives them an opportunity for a few hours on a Friday night to get away from everything that's all the turmoil and devastation that's been brought upon them in the last few months, they can get that back to that sense of normalcy and gives them something to rally behind. And if football can do that, I think that's great. I think that's, like I said, I don't think that's a testament to myself or our program, but just overall to the sport of football. I think it's something that people love and they look forward to in this country, and we're just happy to be a part of it.
Definitely part of the fabric of the community in many places, and no less in Joplin, and maybe a little bit more this year. So before we let you go here, tell us what makes 2011 a good season or a great season. What are some of the goals that you have?
Well, when I took this job, I told our kids, we're one of the biggest schools in the state of Missouri, and we need to take that attitude. And it's time for Joplin to take the next step. I think a conference championship and a playoff berth is something that we definitely need to have in mind, but you got to take it one game at a time. We play in a tough conference. We certainly play a tough district with the defending state champs. We got them week 10. So, our goal focus right now is on Springfield Glendale High School. I know they'll be ready to go, and we know once it gets down, we've had a lot of support from different football programs and communities out there, but we know that on August 26th, they're going to be ready to play just like we are. So we're not going to get any pity once we step on the football field. So we've got to make sure we're ready to go.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us tonight and, inform our listeners on what's going on in the community and then, more importantly, on the football side of things, that there's a football team out there that I think a lot of people are going to be rooting for. So congratulations on getting things up and rolling despite all of that, and good luck in 2011.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. That is Chris Shields, the head football coach at Joplin High School in Missouri. They're still, in need of help there. I'd like to help the residents out. I got a couple of websites for you. You can go to rebuildjoplin.org and joplinschools.org and go there, and you can click on How to Help. I'd also like to thank Joe Hadsel of the Joplin Globe. He helped me out a little bit today with information to get us up to date on what the latest was there in the town. So thanks to Joe from the Joplin Globe on that. And again, go to our website. website to learn more about Joplin and follow them throughout the season and see how the Eagles do as they try to rebuild through Chris, the football program, and more importantly than that, the community itself. On another note that's definitely just as tragic, a little different nature, though, Lamar High School's football team in Lamar, South Carolina, has been dealing with the death of a 14-year-old freshman player. Two younger Georgia players also lost their lives earlier this week, as did an assistant coach in Prestonwood Academy in Texas. So a little bit later, about 40 minutes past the hour, we'll talk with Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck about how players and coaches can take precautions during the dog days of August and two-a-days. But right now we're going to take a break, and when we come back, High School Football America heading to Georgia. Going to chat with Jess Simpson, the head football coach at one of the top programs in the Peach State. It is the Buford Wolves, ranked number 1 by Max Preps in its preseason Small Schools Top 25 rankings. You're listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
The hottest technology in the world isn't being developed in Silicon Valley. In the United States Navy, more top-secret technologies are being created than ever before. Incredible machines made of stealth materials that fly by themselves. The only problem with these incredible technologies? It's a shame the enemy can't see them. To learn more, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life.
And now back to the show with your host, Jeff Fisher.
Welcome back to High School Football America. Just got done speaking with Chris Shields, the head coach in Joplin, Missouri, and what a job he has. Not only install a first-year program, but get through the devastation that wrecked 7,000 homes in the town, destroyed the school, and 160 lives left. So if you missed that interview, it will be posted in our archives later this week at artistfirst.com. But now we're going to head to Georgia, and for the past decade, the Buford Wolves, outside of Atlanta, one of the top teams, no matter what classification. They've won 4 straight Class 2A titles, 7 championships in 10 years. They've only lost 3 regular season games in a 10-year stretch. And this year, Buford poised to go after a 5th straight title with plenty of Division I talent on the roster. The man behind Buford, the head coach, Jess Simpson. And he joins us now to let us know about this 2011 team. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks for having me on.
Excited to talk about it. Like I said during the break there to you, I'm very familiar with your program. 2A, 5A, doesn't matter. You guys have gotten it done, but I'd rather have you tell the listeners a little bit about Buford before we go on to football than I can do it. So tell people about Buford, what type of town it is, and how football fits into the fabric.
You know what, I love to tell people, Buford is a small community located in metro Atlanta in the northern Gwinnett County, which is one of the biggest counties in the country. And, we're surrounded by all this industry and an interstate and probably the largest mall in the southeast, yet we're a small town. We're like a small South Georgia town stuck up in north metro Atlanta and just has a real small town feel to it. Our schools are probably the crown jewel of the city and the thing that's been the most important around here for a long, long time, and it's stayed that way.
Now, you've obviously built a tradition with the numbers I just told the listeners about. Tell us a little bit about your mantra. What is it that you teach the kids down in the youth level about sometime, somewhere, a little bit older in their life, they'll become a Buford Wolf? What does that mean?
It's special. We have a youth program. It's the Gwinnett County Football League is a great youth program, and Buford City's fortunate that we get to play in that. And we start them. They play as young as 6 and 7 years old, and grow up all the way, and all these guys want to be Buford football players, and they're brainwashed, and that's all they hear about. I joke and say the best game every Friday night takes place about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and we're done, and there's 200 little boys in green jerseys out there when we get done playing touch football on our field. And it's a Buford football in this town is really a part of the town's fabric. I mean, it's important, and it's fun, and people have really embraced it.
You painted a picture that gave me kind of goosebumps there. I like the way you described that. That's a cool scene, seeing those kids out there.
It really is.
We talked about the numbers at the top, or I did specifically, 3 regular season losses, the championship 7. Every coach sets out to be a winner, obviously. But when you look back, before we look ahead to this season, when you look back on what you've been able to accomplish as a head coach, what comes to your mind?
You know what? I start by saying, we always have a saying, stats are for losers. I don't keep up with wins and win streaks and what we've done and this and that, but certainly I'm aware of it, and we're aware of it as a program. Not that we minimize achievement, but we certainly don't walk around wearing state championship rings and T-shirts. I mean, our focus is about the process and right now. and we're trying to win the day, and we're trying to make sure our day is better than everybody else's day, or is our January and our off season, did we win that month? And really, when we look at a full year, I mean, it's for us and our players and our coaches, it's about a year-long process. It's about fundamentals, and it's about, we got a bunch of kids that are unselfish and bought in and believe in what we're doing. We joke and we tell our kids, all right, it's your job to drink the Kool-Aid and buy into Buford football. There's a lot of ways to doing stuff. I'm not saying our way is better than anybody else's way, but for our kids and our coaches and our community, they bought into our brand of football. I mean, we joke and say we're still American. We're two backs on offense, but we put our best players on defense, and we're going to stop the run. Our best players cover kicks. And, it's a hard-nosed brand of football, and like I said, our folks and our kids and our community really love it, and they've really bought into it.
Well, the tradition has paid off as you head into 2011. I spoke with Steve Spiewak from Max Preps on the show 2 weeks ago, and he told me they were going to unveil a small schools top 25 for the first time, and he decided to place a bullseye right on your chest, saying you guys are the best small school in the country. So tell me a little bit about what that means to you. And I know you're going to give me coach speak and say it's only on the field, but tell me what it means to be at least recognized at that level.
You know what? The coach speak for me is really true. I mean, we just can't. We don't give that the time of day. Nobody's worried about what a preseason ranking is around here. Our kids know that, the standard of Buford football is really, really high, and that, all off season, that on everybody else's schedule, you're the game that's been circled. You're preparing hopefully for a 15-game season, and it certainly is an honor. It's great. It's great to be recognized, that people look at our program and say, hey, you know what, these guys do have something special, but again, it is not a focal point. It's not something we talk about. Certainly those things are the kind of things we minimize as coaches.
Let's talk about some of your top kids. Let's go offense, defense with your top players. You've got a very good line from what I've been able to read. I see one of your top players is your center, Reed Ferguson. So tell me a little bit about Reed and the rest of the guys up front.
Reed's actually plays offensive guard for us. Big kid who really moves well. He's probably a 6'2.5" kid, weighs about 250, and he's a heck of a player. Reed just committed to LSU, but not as an offensive lineman. He's one of the top snappers in the country. So he's pretty amazing kid. I mean, he throws it. I tell people he throws it between his legs better than most guys can throw it over their head. Vidal Alexander is probably the marquee lineman. He's our left tackle. He went out to the Nike event that was on ESPNU a few weeks ago and was rated the top lineman out there. He's a 6'6", 320-pound kid who really bends well, has all the intangibles you would ever want in a player. A great student, loves his teammates. His teammates love him. One of the hardest workers we've ever had come through here. A really special kid and a special player, but he's probably the anchor and the go-to guy up front.
Tell me a little bit about the rest of the offense. I know you have to replace your quarterback from last year. I guess his name was Alex Ross. So what's that situation?
Yeah, you know what? We got a big left-handed senior quarterback kid that's waited his turn named Sam Clay. He's a left-handed pitcher as well, just committed to Georgia Tech as a pitcher. And we're excited. He's had a super summer, and he's really progressing for us. The other guy on offense is Kurt Freitag, our tight end, who will probably decide between Florida and Alabama. He's a 6'4", 245-pound guy who is truly a throwback tight end. I grew up in the 80s, and the best way to describe him is if you ever watched Notre Dame in the 80s, they had Mark Bavaro that played for the Giants. Yep. He's quiet, he's hardworking, and he is a tough kid. Very physical, great blocker, and really has some ball skills in space and can catch the ball.
Bavaro was one of those lunch pail guys to me. He just got it done for a long time in the NFL level. Let's go to the defense. Lots of D1 verbal commitments over there, too. Tell me a little bit about those players.
It probably starts with Dylan Lee, the outside linebacker. We play him at Sam and play him at nickel. We could move him inside if we needed to. Real football savvy. Truly, Dylan's 6'4", probably 235, 230 pounds. But football comes easy to Dylan. He plays a little wide out, a little tight end. I've just never coached anybody who the actual skill set of the game came easier to. Covers ground and can turn it over. Really runs unbelievable for that size guy, but obviously he's committed to Alabama. We got two great corners in C.J. Moore and Ryan Dillard. Both of those are going to be Division I guys. C.J. just committed to Virginia. Nathan Stobbs, another linebacker who has offers from North Carolina, Virginia, and Cal Berkeley. linebacker, fullback. He's a heck of a player. He's a 6'2", 225 guy. And in the middle, we got two guys, Daquan Clark, a D tackle, and Andre Johnson, a Mike backer. And those two guys really shore up the middle of our defense. Andre will probably also play some tailback for us. You know, he's a 5'11", 225 kid who is really, really explosive.
Now, you guys opened camp earlier this week on Monday, and most of the Southeast is gripped by some heat. A little bit later in the show, we're going to talk to a doctor about what you do for, heat. And there's been a couple of deaths, unfortunately, three actually, 2 kids in Georgia and 1 in South Carolina. Tell me about what you guys are doing as far as the heat. I mean, how bad is it? What have you done to change it up and stay away from it, maybe?
You know, the heat was bad. It was really bad yesterday. We went a little bit later. We actually we didn't wear pads yesterday just because of the extreme heat. And, it's been tough. Today was a lot cooler and a little easier day on the kids and coaches out there in the sun. But, for coaches and your program, it starts with kids being acclimated. It's knowing who your new kids are in your program that maybe haven't gone through your summer program, possibly your obese kids, or even your bigger guys. I mean, the heat and the strenuous activity is always going to be harder for a big man than it is a small guy. I mean, it's not like you don't watch them all, but we really keep an eye on those big guys. And we take a lot of breaks. I mean, we'll go through a 20-minute period and a 5-minute water break and ice them down. In the middle of practice, we'll always have a segment where we take our pads off once or twice. And just try to cool the kids down. And then it's just being smart. You walk out there with a practice schedule every day, but, at the end of the day, if that's not what's best for kids and it's hotter than usual and you got to adapt and adjust, that's what you do. At the end of the day, it's about their safety. And certainly we've been reminded with the 2 deaths in Georgia this week that, what we're doing as coaches is a lot more than coaches. Life is short, and we got to take care of these kids, and we got to raise them up, and we're trying to help them be better people every day. And really, that's our calling as coaches, is to make an impact on these young men's lives that last a lot longer than just 4 years of high school ball.
Well said. And we're talking with Coach Jess Simpson of Buford High School in Georgia. And before we let you go here, let's just kind of wrap up with the keys to success. You talked about the kids drinking the Buford Kool-Aid to understand the program. You also have to keep them from reading the press clippings, too, a little bit. So tell us what you guys have to do on the field this year to bring home a 5th championship in a row.
You know what? I mean, we got to focus on us, and we have to stay in improvement mode. I think all your best teams have a great improvement, in these first 6 weeks. Between games 1, 2, and 3, your best teams are going to make great strides and great improvement. And then most teams are going to level off. I think championship teams can have a second spike in improvement, whether it be fundamental, scheme-wise, execution-wise, really between weeks 8, 9, 10, and 11. And then it's being built for the long haul. It's your mindset. And our kids' mindset is, hey, you know what, we're preparing right now for hopefully what we can do in December. And that's what our program's built on, is knowing that it's about the day. Our small vision is on the things we can control and what we can do today, with the big picture of we know where we want to go in the end.
Well, as I said to you before you got on the air here, I've seen your program a couple of times in person, including once in Ohio at the Kirk Herbstreit Varsity Classic. And your team's a good one. You're not going to put the ball up 20,000 times a game, but it's good Georgia football is the best way I would describe it. So people need to go out and check you out if you've never seen Buford football. So thank you for joining us on the show tonight, Coach.
Man, thank you guys so much for having us, and thanks for covering high school sports, and God bless y'all.
You're welcome. Thanks. Have a great 2011. That is Coach Jess Simpson of Buford High School in Buford, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. Wow, the numbers are incredible. 4 straight 2A titles, 7 championships in 10 years, only 3 regular season losses during a 10-year stretch. Quite a program right there for you. And, again, you can go to the website, highschoolfootballamerica.com, to keep up with Buford throughout the season. Now, don't forget to follow High School Football America on Facebook and Twitter. Just go to highschoolfootballamerica.com and click on the icons if you just want to search on Twitter. Our handle is HSFA America. If you go to Facebook, just look us up at High School Football America. Take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about not some good news. 3 players, as we just mentioned, lost their lives early on. An assistant coach also passed away this week due to heat around the country. We're going to bring in Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck to talk about what can be done to protect players and coaches. This is High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
The hottest technology in the world isn't being developed in Silicon Valley. In the United States Navy, more top-secret technologies are being created than ever before. Incredible machines made of stealth materials that fly by themselves. The only problem with these incredible technologies? It's a shame the enemy can't see them. To learn more, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life.
Welcome back to High School Football America. Now here's your host, Jeff Fisher.
Thank you, Corey. Throughout the show, we've been talking about the excessive heat causing 15 states around the nation to declare heat emergencies, heat index numbers well into the 105 to 120 mark across the South. As I told you earlier, 3 young men have lost their lives on the practice field so far, as did an assistant coach in Plano, Texas, and we're still awaiting word on the results for the players, but the death of Coach Wade McClain at Prestonwood Academy has been ruled a heat-related death. We're also waiting for those autopsy results on those 3 players that should come out later on this week. Now, I want to bring into the show right now Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck. He joined me on the NHSCA Sports Hour to talk about concussions, but right now he is the Commissioner of Health upstate New York and a board-certified medical internist to talk about kind of the heat out there and some of the practices. So, Dr. Lamar, thanks for joining us to chat about what's becoming, unfortunately, kind of a yearly part of the preseason story.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff, for having me. Yes, it certainly is. You know, the summer months and the heat waves, it's becoming a very predictable epidemic, if you will, of heat-related illnesses and unfortunately, heat-related deaths as well.
Now, for our listeners, you were a 3-sport athlete in San Diego, currently a doctor. You also played, you were a captain at University of California in Berkeley, Pac-10 defensive back there. So you've got both sides of the coin here. Let's start with the basics. Sure. When the listeners hear the term heat-related death or heat-related injury, what does that exactly mean?
Well, what it means is this, Jeff. The body can help to regulate its own temperature. So basically, it can make itself warmer when it's cold, and we do that by creating goosebumps and shivering, and that generates heat, and that warms our body. And then it can cool itself when it's hot, and we do that primarily through sweating, and the evaporation of the sweat can have a cooling effect. So when the cooling mechanism is overwhelmed, you know, due to prolonged heat exposure or, you know, an intense activity during a very extremely hot day, we can actually overwhelm our body's thermal regulation ability. So we can no longer get cool and cool enough to stay well. And so actually what can happen is we can have any one of a continuum or spectrum of heat-related illnesses ranging from on the milder end, heat rashes and heat cramps, to on the extreme end, heat strokes, which can be life-threatening, obviously, and be a cause of death.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about precautions, and let's start on the player side first. What are some of the things that players need to be looking for if they're at practice, if they feel something's going on in their body and it's related to heat? What are some precautions?
Well, you asking for precautions or symptoms?
Well, let's go with both then. Just melt it all together for me. You're good at that stuff, so just melt it together for me.
Okay. Well, here's what they should do in terms of a precaution. You know, fluids. They should be drinking a lot of fluids before, during, and after practice. One rule of thumb is about 4 cups of fluid, 32 ounces per every hour that you're going to be exposed in the heat. We're talking water. We're talking sports drinks, which can replace some of the electrolytes and other things, can avoid cramps and things like that. So fluids is number one rule. Athletes don't typically have control over the break schedule, so that's really more of a coaching issue. But a coaching issue would be breaks and rest and some shade breaks. And most importantly, especially in the August in the summer months where they're doing the preseason, is a gradual increase. You know, the dictum that we use is start low and go slow. So coaches should think about, starting, allowing student athletes to get accustomed to the heat by starting with a lower intensity, perhaps shorter practices, perhaps less frequent practices before they escalate right into the two-a-days. You know, you don't want to bring an athlete, off the couch from playing Wii all summer, right into two-a-days in extreme heat. That doesn't make much good sense.
Yeah, and mentioned earlier in the show when I was talking in Georgia, a lot of the Atlanta schools have gone to a 6 in the afternoon practice schedule to kind of get away from the heat. Now, as a coach, you've got kids out there trying to impress you for starting jobs in the two-a-day sessions, maybe not worrying about signs. So as a coach, what should you be keeping your eye on as far as looking at players to see if there's something going wrong there?
Sure. Okay. Well, firstly, we got to think of some of the higher risk players, and the most high risk players are those who are overweight, and those who are actually obese. So those are most risk for any heat-related illness, regardless of where you are in the spectrum. Dehydration. So if an athlete hasn't been drinking fluids to be hydrated, they're going to be at risk. And any athlete that's been using alcohol, and I know high school students don't use alcohol, but let's just say there are some out there, that will actually have a depleting effect or a dehydrating effect on you. So those are some things that are going to be, some of the student athletes are going to be at higher risk. What coaches should be looking for is extreme fatigue, profuse sweating. If an athlete if an athlete looks pale, if an athlete is pulling up with multiple muscle cramps, that can be a harbinger that they may be getting into trouble. That their electrolytes are off balance, because typically if you're dehydrated, you're losing your sodium and your potassium, and your muscles are going to start cramping and having spasms. Obviously, if they're complaining of being lightheaded or having headaches or fainting, those are the kind of things that you should really look for. And most importantly, keep track of the temperature as well as the heat index.
Sure. We're talking with Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck, talking about the heat-related problems around the country. I think this is an important one, and I want to get your take on it. I think it's post-practice. What I'm talking about as a player, you worked hard all day in the sun. What do you need to do when you get home to make sure that you're good and you're ready to go the next day?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing you're going to want to do is cool your body off. You want to cool down your body. So that's a cold or a cool shower, or a cool bath, just to get that core body temperature down. Obviously, you're going to want to replace your fluids. So you're going to want to drink lots of fluids. Your sports drinks are fine. You can actually, add, a little salt and a little sugar to water and give yourself some of those electrolytes back. You're going to want to rest in a shady or air-conditioned place if you can, and basically just regenerate and get your fluids and your electrolytes repleted. And then I would recommend also stretching, because again, you want to keep those muscles stretched so that you're not prone to getting cramps and spasms.
I asked you this question when we spoke earlier about sports concussions on the NHSCA Sports Hour. I'm going to ask you the same situation here. Unfortunately, these stories about the deaths of these players, it's becoming more of a regular occurrence. But, two-a-days have been around for a long time. Why are things happening a little bit more readily, or maybe the media is just picking up on it more, but why do you think there's at least a different perception or more of a spotlight here in 2011?
I think, Jeff, that we've been paying a better attention in counting the numbers, at the CDC level, the National Public Health Agency level. One statistic that I ran across was in collecting these numbers from 1995 to 2010, there's been more than 30 deaths in high school football players alone. So that's about 2 deaths per year. So if you have these sporadic deaths here and there, and you haven't really been counting them, you may attribute, they may be in somewhat in isolation. But now that we're understanding that these are actually happening and that we're able to count them, it really has a more profound magnitude, and it's moving CDC and other health-related agencies to really start getting some preventive guidelines out there and to start helping coaches and student athletes and their parents know the warning signs.
And let's wrap up with a little bit of the education process. Obviously, there's more and more going on, but do you have any ideas on what could be done to make the situation a little bit better, or is it kind of just education and common sense coming together?
I think you have it. You hit the nail on the head. I think it is education, and it is common sense. And education would include recognizing those symptoms, nausea, vomiting, headache, lightheadedness, some of the things we talked about. That's important. And monitoring the temperature, being aware of that, and then most importantly, having some type of response or action plan. If it's hot and the heat index is hot, use your common sense, graduate your practices, and if you see that an athlete is really, really suffering and is not sweating and is overheating, such as heat stroke where there's confusion and unconsciousness, that's a 911, that's a medical emergency. And what you have to do as a coach, you got to cool that player off right away and get some help and get that person to the emergency department.
Very good advice. And Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck, thank you for joining us tonight on both shows to talk about two very important subjects to high school athletes, whether it's concussions or heat-related. They're both things that, like you said, need more education at this point. So thank you for joining me tonight.
Sure. Pleasure's all mine. Thanks, Jeff.
Yep. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to go around the nation, look at some of the big stories from the week that was. You are listening to High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.
The hottest technology in the world isn't being developed in Silicon Valley. In the United States Navy, more top-secret technologies are being created than ever before. Incredible machines made of stealth materials that fly by themselves. The only problem with these incredible technologies? It's a shame the enemy can't see them. To learn more, call 1-800-USA-NAVY or visit Navy.com. Navy, accelerate your life.
Welcome back to High School Football America. Now here's your host, Jeff Fisher.
Thank you very much, Corey. As we wrap things up here on a Thursday evening, a couple of minutes to go, I want to go around the nation and check some of the headlines from the week that was. If you want to keep up with news throughout the season, just go to highschoolfootballamerica.com. You can also keep up with us on Facebook and Twitter. Let's make our first stop in Texas, and it's official. There won't be any high school football games broadcast on the new Longhorn Television Network this year. On Monday, the Big 12 athletic directors voted unanimously to put a one-year hold on televising the high school games, plus recommended that the NCAA establish a national moratorium on such games until the governing body can study the situation a little bit closer. Now, last month, the Big 12 Commissioner, Dan Beebe, hit the pause button on the LTN, saying that it could not move forward with an 18-game high school football schedule on TV until further review from the Big 12 members. The LTN is a joint venture between the Big 12 member Texas and ESPN. 15 states, as we mentioned, in the U.S. under heat advisories as high school football camps began in more than a dozen states in the last couple of weeks. The heat indexes well into the 100-plus marks have been the norm across the South, and with more and more focus being paid on the health and safety of high school football players during two-a-days in the heat of August, the news of the death of Lamar High School freshman football player Tyquan Xavier Brantley on Saturday brought the spotlight right back to where it needs to be, which is what needs to be done to prevent such tragedies. And we just heard Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck tell us a little bit about what can be done. Now, autopsy results won't be released until Friday on Brantley's death, but right now it's not being called a heat-related death. Published reports stated that Brantley died after collapsing following a July 30th morning practice. Brantley and his teammates were reportedly working out in only helmets, so that means no pads. And according to the National Weather Service outside of Darlington, the temperature on Saturday was at 101 degrees. Now, that news was followed up by news of two deaths of Georgia football players a little bit earlier this week. Then in Plano, Texas, where the temperatures have spent the better part of the last 30 days above the 100-degree mark, a Prestonwood Academy assistant coach died. His name, Wade McLean. He died during a practice break during on-field workouts. According to published reports, the 55-year-old McLean, who was married and a father of five, died from a combination of heat exposure and heart disease. Parts of Texas, as I said, dealing with those temperatures above 100 degrees for the last 33 days. Now, Monday's practice took place at 4 p.m. It was the first day at the Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools could begin their fall camps. On Wednesday, Prestonwood Academy practiced at 8 a.m. after taking Tuesday off following the death of Coach McLean. Prestonwood has won back-to-back state championships, winning the TAPS Division I title last year and the Division II title in 2009. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. I want to thank our guests on the show, a real good show. We started off with Chris Shields from Joplin, Missouri. He is the new head coach there, and Chris talked about a lot of things. The school completely wiped away by tornadoes. 7,000 buildings in the town were devastated and leveled, 160 deaths, and Chris right now has the job of putting together his first-year program and bringing the community back. The football field, which is off of the school campus, was okay, so that means the first home game is going to be quite a scene as the town of 50,000 come together to rally around the high school football team, and that's what makes high school football so great. We also spoke with Jess Simpson, the head coach at Buford, Georgia. Buford, the Wolves, they have won 4 straight 2A championships, only lost 3 regular season games in the last 10 years. During that 10-year stretch, 7 state championships. They are ranked number 1 by Max Preps in Max Preps Small School Preseason Poll. And then we want to thank Dr. Lamar Hasbrouck, who joined us. He is currently a commissioner of health in upstate New York, a board-certified medical internist. And Dr. Lamar talked about some of the heat-related problems they've had, what you can do to prevent that, and symptoms that you can look for to make sure that these tragedies that occurred during the first week do not happen again. We want to thank our partners for tonight's show. As always, we want to thank Blitz Group. Go to their website, blitzgroup.com. I want to thank the High School Rudy Awards. You can check them out at highschoolrudyawards.com. And also sponsored tonight by the National High School Coaches Association. The mission, quite simple, leadership and support for coaches and administrators in their programs. Go to their website, nhsca.com, for more information. Again, if you'd like some information on sponsoring High School Football America, you can write me at jeff@highschoolfootballamerica.com, or you can just write me saying, hey, here's a story, Jeff, you need to check this out. You can also follow us on Facebook at High School Football America. Our Twitter handle is HSFA America. And that's going to do it for me. I want to thank Corey for producing the show back in Ohio, and look forward to talking to you again next week, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, on High School Football America on the Artist First Radio Network.